What are you trying to do?
Sure he wasn't swerving to avoid something? An animal? Anything?
I told you. He was driving like a maniac.
I think we can tell that much by how he's ended up.
I don't know what else to say. It's as if he doesn't know the road. He drives up and down it often enough.
You know him?
I know who he is, obviously. I recognise the car. He's some bigwig from British nuclear power, wasn't he?
Pretty suitable death, then. He's practically deep-fried the whole place.
Yes?
Stephen Blake from Mrs. Wilson.
Who?
It's Steve Blake. She doesn't know me. It's just that I was there when her husband had his accident. I thought I should come. I understand if she didn't want to see me.
Please come through.
Mrs. Wilson? I'm sorry, I'm probably the last person you want to see right now.
Are you a friend of my husband?
No, I was there when it happened.
He's...
Darling, who is it?
How can I help you? I was so sure it was you. I saw you.
What you saw was my car. It's my belief that your imagination did the rest. Filled in the blanks, so to speak.
So, have they found out who it really was?
Not much hope of identifying him from the remains, apparently. Be some local yob, joyrider.
And the car was taken from the pub car park. Must have been a pretty sophisticated joyrider. I mean, the security on Jags these days...
Well, perhaps the man was an experienced and determined car thief, stealing to order. It does happen.
So why was he driving like a maniac?
Well, who knows? A car with that power in the hands of some spotty youth is a dangerous beast.
No. No, I saw the man. He was...
Mr. Blake, you came to my house because you thought I was dead. I hardly think you're a great judge of what does or doesn't make sense. I have a very demanding schedule.
Of course.
I'm sorry, sir. You can't do that here.
Sorry, I didn't realize.
How's it going? Steve Blake, I was here last night. I witnessed the accident.
Of course you did. You've already made your statement, haven't you?
It's a funny business, isn't it? It not being James Wilson in the car after all. So what's your theory?
In my job, it never does to jump to conclusions too soon.
Mr. Wilson told me the remains were too burnt to be identified, so how do you go about finding who he was? Dental records.
You were nearer to the explosion than me. You felt the heat. There was nothing left.
I know these cars have big petrol tanks, but I was wondering if something else might have caused the explosion.
That has occurred to us, Mr. Blake. We've got a couple of explosive experts coming over. I suspect I have slightly more experience of these things than you do.
So you think something odd might have been going on?
I don't think anything until I've got the evidence.
The moment of truth. Was he dead? Or was he faking it? Or was he lying to prove a bigger truth? I want you to think about the relationship between the truth and an image of it. Do you see what you want to see? Or what the photographer wants you to see? Where's the truth?
Of the victim was so damaged that, practically speaking, there was nothing to do a post-mortem on. Unusually, even the victim's teeth were destroyed by the severity of the blaze. I would, however, like to comment on the degree of burn suffered by the victim. They were so exceptional that I asked the forensic scientist on the case to account for the heat at what was basically a car accident. With your permission, I'll read his comments. To generate the degree of destruction that I saw at the accident site, you would normally need the sort of heat generated by a bomb or volcanic rock. I can only conclude that the victim's car had in some way been exposed to as yet unidentified chemicals or explosives.
Thank you. Superintendent Ferguson, anything more to add?
Just that we are conducting rigorous inquiries into the possibility that Mr. Wilson's car was exposed to some sort of radiation at the power plant where he is based. So far, I'm afraid our investigations have proved fruitless.
And in your considerable experience, is such evidence likely to be forthcoming?
Frankly, no. The incident was unusual, but accidents are by their nature unusual. Although we can only speculate, it is my personal belief that this was the work of another so-called joyrider.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Open verdict? What's that supposed to mean?
What it says, no conclusions can be drawn.
I saw that car go over the edge of the hill. The driver was a middle-aged man in a suit. He didn't look much like a joyrider to me.
Yes, you thought you saw James Wilson go over the edge. That doesn't make you a terribly reliable witness. I'm afraid all the real evidence was destroyed in the blast.
Yeah, it's remarkable, isn't it? Sorry, Superintendent, can I have a quick word?
What is it you wanted to know?
I just wondered if you'd considered the possibility of a political attack on James Wilson.
A terrorist cell, perhaps?
Well, why not? Head of British nuclear power, he's got to have one or two enemies. Anti-nuclear lobby, anything.
Why does a terrorist who successfully breaks into Mr. Wilson's car then settle for driving it off?
He was driving towards James Wilson's house when he died. Maybe the car was packed with explosives.
Well, we are pursuing this line of inquiry, Mr. Blake. An open verdict doesn't mean our work stops.
So where's your new evidence?
I'm sorry.
You said in the inquest you thought it was a joyrider. But yesterday you said you didn't have all the evidence. When we talked yesterday at the accident site?
Mr. Wilson dying at the wheel of his car? Conversations with me that you and I never had? I think your memory is playing tricks on you, Mr. Blake. Again?
What's your problem, Mr. Blake? Is your life really so dull?
My problem is that some poor bastard was killed in your car and nobody cared much as long as it wasn't you.
Just how far do you think our sympathy should stretch? This idiot stole a car. He was probably on drink and drugs. Drove the thing at high speed along a badly lit road.
Left no skid marks.
What?
He lost control of the car, but he didn't brake. Have a look at the road. There's not a mark.
I'm sure the police would have some explanation. Would you stop that, please?
Yeah, I'm sure they would. They seem to have an explanation for everything. That's why I'm not going to the police with this. I'm going to the press.
I'm not back, Harry. Yeah. Have a newspaper. No, thanks. I'm trying to give him up. Lieutenant! Lieutenant!
How did you get up here?
Don't leave home without it.
That's 3 years out of date.
Press passes are like people. They gain authority with age.
You've lost weight.
So have you.
No, I haven't.
I know, I just thought I'd flatter you. I need your help.
You always did.
Can we talk?
So, what's this story that's woken you up? Sheep rustling?
More poaching than rustling.
Poaching what?
Somebody's life. Somebody else's death.
You're not still banging on about your photographer's angst, are you?
No, nothing like that.
Good. I thought for a minute you'd come all this way to open up an argument way past its sell-by date.
Joanna, if I thought anybody else could have helped, I'd have gone to them like a shot.
Thanks, Steve. I'm touched. Okay, what do you want?
Wilson Harold,
Wilson Jockey. Wilson James. There you are. James Wilson. Appointed Chief Executive of British Nuclear Power 4 years ago. Surprise choice as head of the Energy Council earlier this year.
Why a surprise?
He's considered quite a liberal.
Not from the little I've seen.
He's a bit unlucky with his cars, your James Wilson.
What?
3 months ago, hit a tree with his sports car near Lincoln. Managed to escape with minor injuries.
Really?
Steve, man unhurt in collision with a tree might be a sassy headline where you come from, but...
Who handled the inquiry? I got a tenor, says it was Superintendent John Ferguson.
Wrong. Inspector John Ferguson. He's been promoted since then and transferred.
What can you get on him?
Let's see. System overload.
I thought you were all powerful.
Shut up. Give me 5 minutes, I'll get round this. That's better. Superintendent John Ferguson grows his own vegetables. Sharp career rise in the last 5 years. Bright. Tough on law and order. Transferred to Central Ops 2 years ago.
What's that?
Comes under the Home Office, sort of MI5 meets Special Branch with a smattering of the anti-terrorist squad. Last March, an RAF commander was feared dead after a plane crash. It turns out it wasn't him flying the plane.
This happened before.
I'll print it out if you like. Ferguson said police could not identify the pilot because of the severity of the explosion.
Yeah, another victimless death.
Hey, that's my kind of journalism. Snappy headline, but factually inaccurate. There are victims. What's it with this bloody machine?
Sorry, your guest doesn't have security clearance.
Security clearance? What are you talking about?
We've been instructed to escort Mr. Blake to the nearest exit.
This has never been a problem before.
Oh, forget it. They're just doing somebody else's job.
Sorry about that. Security's a lot tighter these days. No. You obviously still give off odor to newsprint, even if you have turned your back on us.
It's not who I was that worried them, it's what we were looking at.
Steve, some crisped corpses and an incompetent cop do not a conspiracy make.
Well, how about adding crashed computer to the scenario?
I found a way around that.
How?
Come on, I'll show you. Let me buy you lunch. You're not telling me you don't miss the lifestyle down here?
I miss the glamour, obviously.
I never thought you'd actually stay away. From me, maybe, not the job.
That's the trouble. They became the same thing in the end, didn't they?
One thing our marriage didn't descend into was self-pity. Try and steer clear of it now, will you? Table 13 free.
Yep, there you go.
2 cappuccinos, please.
Take no virgin.
2 cappuccinos. What is all this?
A cyber cafe. Info technology meets the frothy coffee brigade. World Wide Web, the internet. You had heard they'd invented the wheel. How's this worked? I wonder.
Can you get anything else on Ferguson? Was he in charge of all the inquests?
Let's find out. Here we go. There was only one other copper involved. Also Central Ops, Philip Gates. Hello. This gets tastier. Gates and Ferguson seem to go way back.
So what? So do a lot of copies of that rank.
No. They're from the same village, or should I say, ex-village. Sweet Hope?
Norfolk coast, 4 or 5 years ago. The whole place fell off the edge of a cliff.
Something like that.
Not bad, eh?
Gates and Ferguson were the 2 policemen on duty the night of the Sweet Hope disaster. They both got commendations.
So their village disappearing into the sea didn't do their job prospects any harm.
Policemen are like journalists. They need a good disaster to launch their careers. Look at this lot.
This is fantastic.
You're actually animated. I never thought I'd see that again. I'll get this printed out. It's table 13.
Thank you. Table 13, free.
Thanks very much.
You use that place a lot.
Let's just say it's helped me cut a few corners in the past. It's instant access to the web, and you're virtually untraceable. All I did was hitch a ride and launch the Ferguson file onto the net. Drugs raid, probably.
You don't think?
Don't start.
I'm gonna go and see this village. It's what this thing's all about.
What's the hurry? You're not even in the business anymore. Let me see if there's anything in all this before you go chasing phantoms.
Call me in Sweet Hope. Oh, and by the way, thank you.
You might at least have paid for the cappuccinos.
It wasn't me!
It's good of you to go to all this effort.
This is one of the better parts of the job.
So you must get sick of nosy types like me asking about Sweet Hope all the time.
There's not much interest in it these days. But it's human nature to be curious about disasters.
So this wasn't a disaster, was it? Everyone survived. From where I'm standing, that looks like a miracle.
Could you shut the door, please? Take a seat. Before. After. Everyone knew the village's days were numbered because of the gradual subsidence and the terrible storm. What they hadn't accounted for was the explosives cache.
That the Ministry of Defense had no knowledge of.
No. Or if they did, they weren't going to admit it. Reckoned it dated back to the Second World War. Might even still be some down there.
Hasn't anybody checked?
Apparently, they've lost any records which might help. This photo was taken the morning after. I think they were just glad to be alive.
How come they all left the village in time?
Everyone I've spoken to said that somehow they knew. If you believe that sort of thing.
Do you?
I would be better off asking someone who was there. I was travelling back to Sweet Hope that evening. The storm slowed me down, but I was close enough to feel the explosion.
Did you see anything?
There was a white flash and a fireball. I got out of the car and everything was still. There was a strange smell.
Something like herbs or lavender burning, but not quite either.
How did you know?
Let's just put it down to experience. Superintendent Ferguson when he was just a constable. The other one is Philip Gates.
They decided to take the credit for leading the villagers to safety. The press loved it. That's it, I'm afraid.
So, any chance of me talking to any of the survivors?
Not around here, I'm afraid. They had nothing to stay for. If you excuse me, I have to go back to work. Can I have a receipt?
No, thanks.
Hello.
Joanna, it's Steve. I'm in Norfolk. I've rented a cottage. I've got an appointment with Gates, the other Sweet Hope copper, tomorrow.
Can't you get a hobby? Take up jigsaws.
There are some names I'd like you to check before I go.
How many names?
Only about 200.
I'm not your assistant, Steve. Don't push me.
Listen, they were all saved from Sweet Hope on the night of the disaster. I just want to know if any of them have done anything significant since.
How do you mean?
If their careers have taken off like Gates and Ferguson's. I think some of them might have been bought off after the accident.
Okay. Give me the top 20 names and it stops there.
Stop playing games, eh? If you're going to arrest me, then just get on with it. If you're not, then just piss off.
I'm not from the MOD, I just wanted to chat.
Try the Samaritans.
I did, they recommended you. Can I buy you a drink?
Where?
There must be somewhere.
I'm not thirsty.
Okay, I'll buy a lobster then.
Tenner.
Fiver.
Done. Give us a hand with these then.
Aren't you worried about potting in this area?
All my family fished here down the years. Why should I do any different?
Several tons of undetonated explosives.
You believe that?
Why else would the MOD cordon it off? Had some barbed wire left over from the last war, did they?
Yeah. Fiver, you said?
Thank you.
Police are giving up trying to turn me off those waters. They might warn me once a month now. Used to be once a day.
When they were warning you, you ever come across a copper called Philip Gates, top brass?
Yeah. It was him that decided I wasn't worth the bother. Said he remembered me from his days as a bobby on the beat in Sweet Oak.
You from Sweet Oak?
Wish I was. Nah. I just used to shoplift there on a Saturday afternoon.
You're still at it, by the looks of things.
Be amazed what gets washed up on that beach. Still find something there at least once a month.
Where'd you find this?
Morning after it happened. Got most of it that day.
What is that smell? It's not seawater, is it?
Put it down, that's my stuff. Put it down!
All right. I'm not trying to upset you, just...
You talk to anyone else from Sweet Oak?
Only a copper called Ferguson.
He's another one. Everybody in Sweet Oak that night. Their luck changed. I mean, serious. Midas stuff.
Is that what this little museum's all about? You hoping to catch some luck off it?
Well, it had to be something in the village, didn't it? I tell you, there's powerful magic still down there.
Here's a donation. Yeah?
Steve, I've been checking those names you gave me. You might be right. There is something very strange happening to the Sweet Hope survivors. I really think you're onto something.
Mr. Blake? Pleased to see you. Close on 250,000 people went missing in this country last year, and you've come up with what? A dozen instances of so-called victims' death?
But all these accidents follow identical patterns. Someone is missing, presumed dead, and then turns up safe and well. And look at the profiles of these people. Energy commissioners, senior civil servants, top brass military.
The reason you hear about such cases is they do involve high-profile victims.
And you, or Superintendent Ferguson, have led every inquiry.
There's nothing sinister about that either. That's the reason the Central Ops Unit was conceived, streamlining high-profile inquiries.
And providing job opportunities for bobbies from Sweet Hope.
I was wondering when you get round to that. You chaps usually do.
But you're not the only two Sweet Hope refugees whose careers have rocketed since then.
None of this is news to me, Mr. Blake.
Out of the 122 adults of working age saved that night, 15 have risen to the boards of their companies, 12 have become leading traders on the stock exchange, 28 run successful businesses from arms trade, drugs research, 10 are now senior officials in government departments, and 3 are MPs. It's a record Eton would be proud of.
We lost everything we had that night. Everything we'd ever worked for. Now you can either go under at the thought of that, or it can drive you on with a force that's simply awesome.
So refugees make the best capitalists.
That's one way of putting it.
Hello.
This isn't about unreturned library books, is it? You're not part of some library service flying squad.
You seemed as interested in my husband as I am. My name's Melissa Gates. When I realised Philip had survived the Sweet Hope disaster, I was so relieved. So happy that at first I didn't notice the change in him.
Well, he could have been in shock, couldn't he? You both could.
That's how I explained it to begin with. But then the days went by and then the weeks. And I realised that he'd changed for good.
I talked to your husband about this. He said he thought the survivors became highly motivated because they lost everything.
Well, I lost everything. But I didn't change the way those people did that night.
Well, it wasn't just your husband you noticed was different.
People I'd known for years were suddenly strangers to me. Their emotions, their dreams, their personalities.
Before I came to Sweet Hope, I saw a man die in a car crash. Or rather, I thought I did, until I saw the same man alive and well the next day. It's almost as if something similar has happened here.
The Ministry of Defence owns all this land down to the coast. I thought that must be part of the explanation, some chemical warfare experiment gone wrong, maybe even a deliberately engineered accident.
You don't believe that now?
I don't know. All I know is that if any army anywhere had a weapon like that, then would they really be able to keep it a secret?
Anything could be covered up, as long as you make sure the right people gain by it.
So how many chemicals do you know that kill people and then bring them back to life? Thanks.
What for?
For making me feel as if I'm not alone in all this.
I think I might know someone who might be able to help us. Would you be willing to talk to them?
Oh, yes. Yes, I think so.
Oh, and the slides. Can you get me some copies?
Trust me, I'm a librarian.
Oi! Do you do pleasure cruises?
You're not afraid of the explosives?
You told me they were a fairy story.
I wasn't staking my life on it then, was I?
I just want to see what the fuss is all about.
Stay where you are. This is Ministry of Defence land, and you are trespassing.
Thanks a lot. The bloke wanted to see the place, and all I did was take some of his cash to sail him out there.
We've tolerated you long enough. If we catch you fishing these waters again, we'll have no choice but to take legal action.
Look, what you saying? That I'm banned from this bit of sea or that bit of sea? It's always moving, man. So which bit do you own?
I told you, son.
You certainly seem to have got your teeth into Sweet Hope, Mr. Blake.
It's a remarkable story.
I thought after our chat yesterday you'd understand that it's neither remarkable nor a story.
I might have thought that until I visited the library in Maidstone.
So you've met Melissa?
That's right.
Well, she's a very vulnerable woman, Mr. Blake. And if you take advantage of her in any way, I'll have your arse in a vice sooner you can say, what's the verdict?
Doesn't strike me as a type who needs protecting.
I would have thought you were the one person to know that first impressions can sometimes be very deceptive. The Sweet Hope disaster took a greater toll on Melissa than all of us.
So she said.
Did she also tell you about the breakdown she had, or the psychiatric help that she needed?
Why are you telling me this?
Because I don't want her exposed to any more harm and pain than she's already suffered. We might be divorced, but I won't see her hurt. I take it we understand each other.
I spoke to Gates again today.
Steve. How very local.
Hi, Joanna. This is Melissa. I mentioned her on the phone.
Pleased to meet you. So, I take it I haven't come all this way just for the seafood. Melissa, believe me, people wake up every morning and find they no longer know the person they married. It happens. It doesn't mean a thing. But this isn't about falling out of love. This is about a total change of personality. All I recognize is the outer shell, everything else. I'm sorry about what's happened to you. It must hurt like hell, but it's not news.
Okay, right, let's look at the facts. James Wilson, dead, but not dead. Half a dozen others, dead, but not dead. Sweet Hope is the same. All the inhabitants are feared dead, and then they turn up safe and well.
Did 200 char-grilled corpses turn up in a car park round the corner? No. Well, it's not the same.
No, let's say the MOD has done some tests with chemicals at sea. Right? Experiment goes wrong, so they buy off the inhabitants of Sweet Hope with enhanced prospects. Then they use these chemicals on selected members of the establishment.
Why?
I don't know yet.
If this is a conspiracy, what's it for? Who gains by it? Who suffers?
But in a year's time, the Sweet Hope survivors could form the most powerful network in the country, and then it'd be too late to ask who suffers.
So, the British Secret Service have chemically altered the population of a small village. I'll buy that.
Not necessarily the British Secret Services.
Are you serious? Who? The Yanks don't need Sweet Hope. They've got McDonald's. The Russians can't even control their own backyard.
So what if you rule out the human race? Where does that take you?
I'm sorry. What are you suggesting? Zombies? Aliens?
Why not? Look, I've spent the past 5 years trying to square this circle.
The only reason I drove out here tonight is because I knew this man when he had an eye for the truth. Where did you two find each other? Some kind of self-help group?
Excuse me.
Melissa.
Well, Tuesday morning.
She may not have an explanation for what she's been through, but you don't have any answers either.
Divorce does funny things to people, Steve. That's the only answer I
You've
can
forgotten
give.
how to listen.
And you've been away too long.
I think you might have told me about your line of thinking before we went in there.
Then you just stood up for me in front of your friend, would you?
I wouldn't have arranged the meeting at all.
There isn't a rational explanation. You said so yourself.
Yeah, well, I meant to carry on looking for one back on Earth, you know?
Do you think I want to believe this? You said yourself you saw a man killed and then alive the next day. Do you think that sounds rational?
When things happen, you have to keep looking.
Absolutely. And it always comes back to the same conclusion.
When I spoke to your husband, your ex-husband, today, he said that after the disaster, you had some sort of breakdown.
I was living in a nightmare. The person I loved was no longer there for me. He hadn't died, he hadn't left me, he wasn't having an affair. But he wasn't the man I loved anymore. I was totally alone and nobody could understand. If you want to call that a breakdown, then go ahead. You won't be the first.
If Joanna had gone with this and your history had come out, they'd have crucified you.
Yeah, but you really don't see, do you? They'll crucify us anyway.
David! Wake up! What are you doing here? What's wrong with you?
Where did you get this?
Piss off! Let me sleep. Listen to me!
You sure you found this on the beach?
Of course I did. Everything got washed up.
When?
I've told you the first morning after the village went under.
So how could a child who survived be wearing it in a photograph taken the same morning?
Maybe there's more than one.
Well, it's hardly a Marks and Spencer's job, is it? Get dressed. You're taking me out there.
You're a bleeding nutter. You know that?
That's quite a tribute coming from you.
This time, if they catch us out here, they'll probably just pick us off with a cruise missile.
You know the trouble with young people these days? No sense of adventure.